Welcome to Your Town, a monthly program to let you learn about what's happening in your neighborhood and your county. I'm Monterey County Business Council President Marianne Leffel, and I'll be your host for this program. We've got a great lineup, so stay with us and learn about your community. So my first guest is Gloria Stearns, Economic Development, City of Seaside. And you've been here how long?
6 whole months.
Wow.
Right. This is my first California winter, and I'm loving it. Right now in Milwaukee, I hear there's about 10 inches of snow, and it's 17 degrees.
Makes it a lot easier to sell economic development when you've got such fabulous weather.
Oh, it's a treat to sell economic development here. It's not hard to convince people they have to come to the Monterey Bay area.
So Gloria, you're in Seaside, and I know Seaside's got so much going on. You and I were talking about some of the opportunities, and you're leading a lot of the charge in the inner core of the city. Is that correct?
Right. That's for sure correct. Seaside is really great. After the base closing, we were presented with a number of opportunities. So we don't really have a proper downtown. And one of the areas that I'm working on in particular is down on Broadway. And this is something that when I talk to the people in the community, we have a lot of support for. They want Broadway to turn into our downtown area. So we're talking about, the best part is we're kicking it off within a month of today. We get $7 million worth of infrastructure improvements down on Broadway. So wide sidewalks and restaurant dining and all sorts of other opportunities.
It is exciting. And if you are in Seaside often, which I am, we already see some of the results. So when you look at some of the new markets, the Broadway Center, which is full now, and a market there, and then the market on Fremont Street. Is that Mi Pueblo? Mi Tierra.
Yeah.
You look at and you see how many people are in and out of there, and you see how fresh and clean. And then what is the one? Smart and Final, with the expansion that they did, and that place is a joy to go in. So there's so much, I think, diversity in Seaside, both in the population but also in shopping.
Right. And that's something that we hear that people value is our multiculturalism. So even though we're making plans to grow the city, we want to make sure that we celebrate that multiculturalism. So we welcome people and we're very inclusive. And we're looking at that when we recruit businesses and developers to come into the city. So even on Broadway, we had a number of inquiries. It's really great because we have the West Broadway Urban Village Plan. And that actually won awards back in its day, and now we're finally able to start executing that. And we have people coming in to talk about how can we start developing. So they're talking about putting up a 3- and 5-story buildings down on Broadway, and how can we celebrate that multiculturalism and make some of these units available for people of all ethnicities and restaurants available for people of all interests and food tastes. It's kind of exciting to see.
Well, I think it is. And I'm a huge proponent of dirt is expensive, so let's go up and let's not just keep it to a 2-story limit. And if you can do mixed use and have people where they can live above and come down and participate in festivities and things going on, it certainly makes sense. It makes a much more vibrant area.
Right. That's exactly what we're trying to do. We envision Broadway as being, and especially Broadway between Fremont and Del Monte, as being exactly that. And even at the very least, what we're trying to do is we're starting to get some of the businesses that are there to start painting their buildings and freshening up their windows. So that way, when we get the new street done in the middle of 2018, we sort of unveil everything. I almost envision like a ribbon cutting ceremony and a big party and festivities, and shutting the street down and just having people walking around and enjoying the businesses that are there. Newly painted. Hopefully we'll have some shovels in the ground, or at least in process, with dream boards up. This is what we're looking to do. But I see it as becoming something, and the potential is greater every day. We have new people leasing space and new development inquiries coming in.
I think it's really exciting. And also I'd love, I think with the Seaside High, with the changes that it's making for technology, that it will attract also young families who have children who are very interested in that field. So the whole, it's like the education, the economic development, everything's coming together. And
right. That's one thing, too, is that we've been reaching out to a number of different entities. So I chat with MPUSD We have relationships with CSUMB, so that way we're talking to all of these educational institutions, and a lot of times you can use that to leverage economic development, so that way you can figure out what strengths there are, and even simple things like student housing. You know, there's a bit of a crunch for CSUMB, so we're looking at how can we plan a campus town, because Seaside actually has land right across the street from CSUMB. So how can we help alleviate some of their growing pains? So those are other projects that we have in Seaside that are going on.
Well, you know, I chair Chartwell School Board, and we, of course, are in Seaside. And we've got a huge conference coming in that will be for people who are in the learning difference community. And I think that's another piece, that as long as we can continue to bring people in from outside the area and they can see the opportunities and see how much is available still in the city of Seaside. It's not built out. And it's pretty much, you can make it whatever you want right now.
Right. That's one thing that I view, and that's one of the reasons that I really like this job, is I think it's a great opportunity at Seaside. We have so much infill development opportunities, I think, with the downtown on Lower Broadway and helping that to turn into a true downtown. Then we set our sights on both Fremont and Upper Broadway. And we did some land sales recently because we had to dispose of property from the former redevelopment authority. So we're looking at how can we have developers, you know, make some of that land go, you know, and serve the community. And we're looking at residential opportunities because housing is tight in this market. And those would, again, be a taller facility. But again, we're looking to try to keep price points so that way we can keep families and teachers and the real working people. I mean, that's really kind of what our strength is at Seaside. So I think rather than trying to chase people out with price points, I think we want to be inclusive of all, you know, not only ethnicities, but price points too.
Well, and I think, you know, realistically, Upper Seaside has some of the best views all along the Pacific coast. It's crazy how far you can see from Upper Seaside and what you can see as you look back toward the rest of the peninsula. It's beautiful.
Oh, I know. I couldn't believe it when I was going up there the first time. My very first day, they actually took me up to General Gym, and I think it's eucalyptus, and they're like, get on your hiking shoes, girl, we're going for a walk. And so I did, and it was phenomenal. They said, turn around, and all of a sudden you see that stunning view. That's the best part. And so we actually take that very seriously. So people talk about things like the Seaside East parcel of land that Seaside will be getting in a few years. We take that responsibility very seriously. You know, that's a gift to our community, and it's something that could be of value, you know, for a long time. So we can't ruin it. We have to do it right. And so we're really taking the time to listen to a lot of the residents and different nonprofits and businesses to see what do they want us to do in their city. And basically we're trying to help them accomplish their goals.
I was at a service a couple weeks ago for the out at the Veterans Cemetery, and it's nice that also, with the amount of veterans that are in the area, I think it's fabulous that that's within Seaside's boundaries. I think it is something that people don't realize how important that, and to be on the edge of the National Monument, both those things are very important to what Seaside has to offer.
Right, and I think it's also, I mean, this will sound a little crass, but it's an opportunity. I think with the National Monument, we see as some sort of an entryway point, you know, like how can we have all people, you know, because there's people of different abilities, maybe they can't walk and go hiking or biking, but how can they enjoy the National Monument? So is there some facility that we could have for them? What is a facility that we could do that could help educate kids in the environment and help them to celebrate some of the things that make our area special? So we're really trying to just start cooking up some of those, and we actually have, we're starting to develop ideas through one of our projects with FORA, is the Oak Woodlands Conservation Project. And so we've had ideas and we've had public meetings and people weighing in on these things, and so we're trying to figure out how can we lightly touch some of those areas, not develop them heavily, but just lightly touch them to accentuate them.
No, that makes sense. I'm not a big hiker. I'm actually pretty lazy. But when we go places, and I'll use Kauai as a good example because we have property there, it's really interesting when we hike at a place where they've got the different types of trees and plants marked. It makes it much more enjoyable for someone like me who didn't particularly study that in school. I learned it enough to pass some tests and move on, but it's really fascinating to see, and if they've got some type of descriptor of the plant. So I think that's all part of the education of the public.
Right. And that's something that we're really getting into, and it's funny that you mentioned that because one of my many hats that I wear in Seaside, I'm actually a landscape architect, and so I know my plants, and not all of the Western ones yet, but I'm learning. And it's really great because I value that type of education. We're also trying to see like how can we inject things like bees. You know, there's a bee collapse going on. How can we have beehives in certain areas? Even simple things like right at the corner of Canyon Del Rey and Del Monte, the city actually owns a little triangle piece of land that looks sadly like a pile of weeds right now. And we're busy working on landscape designs for it and little walls and things, but we're also looking at a botanical garden. So how can we showcase succulents, you know, and plants that don't need a lot of water and labeling them so that way people can sort of come out and enjoy the space, but then learn about the environment and what might be good plants for their own gardens, you know, just compliments of taking a walk in Seaside.
Now, does Seaside have actual beach property?
We have a little bit, yeah. It's just a little though.
Where is it? Is that between Monterey and Sand City? Is that where it is?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly it. It's just a tiny little sliver.
So if you walk down from Embassy Suites and you walk under the overpass,
Correct.
you walk down and the hotel is on the left, and then that's Seaside's
Yep.
beach right
Right,
there,
Seaside owns the
which
beach.
gets a lot of usage.
It does. It's always packed. In case you didn't notice, like the parking lot gets full, the road gets full, and then even over at Roberts Lake it gets full too. So on a nice day, it's really hard to get parking in that area. So it's kind of nice that we have that little sliver of beach. But that's why we're also trying to create fun and excitement in other areas of the city too. So we have things like our Blues in the Park is very popular at Laguna Grande Park. Cutino Park is scheduled for some upgrades too, and that's pretty popular with the kids for recreation. So we have ball fields there, and we're going to look at investing even more money to make those ball fields a little more habitable, and then plus ADA upgrades. So we're looking at ways that we can make recreation available to everybody in Seaside, you know, so that way you don't have to just go to the beach, but whatever your interest is. We actually have a couple of groups that are kind of cool in Seaside. There's one called FOSPA, which is the Friends of Seaside Park Association. And this is actually a resident-led group. So they just banded together and they start taking care of the parks. And they were instrumental in changing Pachetti Park, which is our dog park, and that's probably our second most used park in the area. They claim, and this is their words, they claim that they go through 1,000 dog waste bags a week.
Wow.
So they get a ton of visitors there. So, I mean, it's well used and well loved, but this is all resident-led. So that's what I love about the Seaside residents.
And I see a lot of young families moving into Seaside because it is affordable. It's a little bit warmer than other places on the peninsula, which I think also is nice on a kind of an overcast day. Seaside often has sun when other people don't. I live across the bay on a hill, and I can look over and I can be in the shade, and I'll look over, and one of our dear friends, I'll look over and think, he's in the sun still at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I think there's some real benefit, and I think people just need to get out, explore it, and take a look at it.
Well, there's a number of opportunities for them to do that too. It's funny because there's a group called the Seaside Walking Action Group. So, you know, if people are interested in walking, you know, you go to Facebook and you just search on Seaside Walking Action Group or SWAG, and they do all kinds of cool things, not just walks, but they also get involved in the community. So they do cleanups along the way. They like to make sure that people are informed about what's going on in the community. So it's kind of like this group that just starts doing things. Another group has just started doing community cleanups. You know, so there's always things to do if you just kind of start digging in. And it gives these young families an opportunity to sort of start taking care of the community too. They can start digging in and making it their own, which is what everybody wants to do. You know, you want your community to feel like your community or your town, right?
Yes.
There you go.
Well, you know, you talked about the plan that's been in place for some time. I don't know, I can't remember how many years that Broadway improvement plan was done.
Right.
But I think people have to understand it's all about the economy being prosperous. It's about having the right people in place, and it's about having the will of the community to finally get behind something, and then someone coming in with enough money to make it happen. So it looks like all of those pieces are coming together now.
I think so. I would agree. I think our council has the will to make economic development really happen in our city, and that's exciting to see. They're taking a number of steps to show that they're really interested in investing. And we've taken a lot of positive steps with developers, so that's also very positive. And the Broadway plan, you're right, that had been on the shelf for a little while, but the economic downturn really hit Seaside, is my understanding. And we're only now starting to get back on our feet a little bit, with the help of grants, actually, to start making some of those activities happen. So we've been fortunate in that regard. But it also helps having those young families moving in and people who want to get involved in our government. It's fun to go to our council meetings. And who says that? You know, it's fun to go to council meetings, right? Ours are really, it's almost like a family chat, you know, because you know the players, the same people, not just on council, but the people who attend. We always have good attendance at our meetings. And they don't just sit there, they speak. They speak their minds. So whenever there's, you know, a chance for the public to weigh in on issues, they do, you know, and that's cool. They're really making the government theirs.
Well, I have the occasion to attend out of the 12 cities and the county a lot of meetings, and I think one of the most active cities, if not the most active, with its population interacting with its government is Seaside. And I think that's healthy for a community. It truly is. Because you don't get so far down as a government employee and then have to reverse back what you're doing. So anyway, I think it's great. So what's the next big event in Seaside?
Well, we have, for Memorial Day, we have a couple of things coming up. Usually our police do an event, Heroes for Kids, and so that should be coming up on Memorial Day. We also have a car show, so Hot Cars, Cool Nights has their first car show. And we were just talking about that last night with them, and we might make that one that to honor military and people in uniform to tie in with the Memorial Day weekend. So I would tell people to stay in touch with Seaside through our Facebook or Twitter account. Or else just the Seaside City website, so that way you can see what's going on. We also have different meetings coming up. One of the big ones that's coming up is going to be our Sanctuary City discussion on the 29th, so people can go to Oldemeyer at 5 p.m., so that's a big discussion that people may want to participate in our community. The last time we had that discussion, I think they said there were over 300 people participated. So again, people participating in government, you know, come on and have that conversation. I think it's important that we do.
That's great. Do you want to give everybody the website?
Sure. It's ci.seaside.ca.us. So CI is short for city, .seaside.ca.us. So that's a shortcut for finding it. Or just find us on Facebook. So that's a way. You can just look for City of Seaside Town Hall, or City Hall, sorry, and yeah, and that's another great way to stay connected to us. And if you just like us, then you get all of the updates automatically.
Perfect. Gloria Stearns, thank you so much. And really, 6 months, you've accomplished a lot. We really can't wait to see what comes next in Seaside.
Well,
So
thank you.
you.
Thank you, Marianne.
So don't go away. We'll be back in just a minute with our next guest. This is Your Town, hosted by the Monterey County Business Council.